Minister, welcome to the South China Morning Post.
Thank you very much.
Minister, Malaysia's monarchy is in the limelight. Sultan Abdullah of Pahang has been named the new king today.
Yeah.
What is the place of the monarchy in today's Malaysia?
In Malaysian democracy, the role of the constitutional monarchs has always been embedded. It's a part of our culture and wonderful history. And the Malaysian people respect them dearfully. I think in today's context, it's the same as well. While we have a ruling executive government, and the role of the government in this democracy will always be separated from the role of the monarchy. But in terms of its rich cultural and historical context and symbolic context for Malaysia, it will continue and forever be respected.
Should the Malay rulers continue to be protected by the Sedition Act?
I personally am against the Sedition Act, not because of the protection which is in place for the Malay rulers, but because it's so vague and capricious to the point that it can be abused by politicians, not for the defense of the rulers, but by political elites.
The first criminal trial of Prime Minister Najib Razak is coming up in February.
Yep.
He seems quite unperturbed and there's a new campaign around him. Is there any worry that he could make a quick political comeback?
I do not think so. I mean, people say he looks unperturbed. The very same thing which people said prior to election, which led to the confidence of a lot of BN machinery and their supporters. Oh, see, Datuk Sri Najib is very confident that WSJ will not pose a risk to him, that the 1MDB scandal will be ignored by the Malaysian people and he will be elected with a two-third majority. But yet, the very same perception which crumbled post-election, I believe would also be the very same thing which will happen now. I think the evidence is clear. This is not just a localized case. Other countries are with us, and at the same time, it is a global money laundering scandal, the biggest one in the world. I have a strong feeling that justice will be served.
Now, on the recent ban of Israeli athletes, your government says it won't budge because of your support of Palestine. Isn't that thoroughly against the Olympic spirit? And are you ruling yourself out of, holding a world event like the World Cup?
The Malaysian government has its own stance on this issue. We feel passionately in defense of our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and it's key that we speak up for those who are voiceless. And the stance not to accept Israeli athletes to Malaysia is one of it. I mean, Israel has enjoyed the support of many countries, while the recognition of Palestine by many countries is almost impossible. And those who recognize always get punished by Western forces. When we want to censure Israel through the United Nations, a legitimate route, the United States will place their veto. Now it has been the 47th time. And when there are those who speak up, their development aid gets taken back. For example, Donald Trump took back more than 200 million of development aid from Palestinian countries who decide to not to speak up against the Israeli oppression. Point which I'm trying to make here, countries deserve the right to recourse and to maintain their stance. I believe on this issue, the Malaysian government must stand strongly for Palestinian brothers and sisters to show that we oppose the actions of the Netanyahu government to continuously oppress the Palestinian people and foment a situation where Palestine remains as the biggest open-air prison in the world.
Isn't there a question of you mixing politics and sports? And again, the question was about whether this was against the Olympic spirit.
Yeah, this is a question of humanity. I mean, the Olympic Council has boycotted some countries or left them out due to human rights abuses and humanitarian causes. For example, in South Africa, under the apartheid regime, they were precluded from the Olympics, and there were strong sanctions by the international community. I would say that apartheid in South Africa is less severe than the oppression done in Palestine today. If IOC back then had the moral courage and conscience to speak up against South Africa, also spoke out against Kuwait for political interference, I think the oppression done upon our Palestinian brothers is far more grievous and severe in comparison to the action taken by IOC to its previous countries before.
On China ties, your Transport Minister Anthony Loke just returned from Beijing. What is your perspective as the Youth and Sports Minister of the current state of bilateral ties?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in forming as many strong bonds of friendship with other countries, especially one of the global superpowers like China. But while we do so, we want to ensure that we enter agreements justly and fairly and negotiate it well. So this doesn't just revolve around the Transport Ministry, but it revolves around, for example, potential collaboration between the Ministry of Youth and Sports with China, whether it's in vocational education, in the field of sports. The point is, as long as we treat each other as equals, not as inferior or superior, I believe we will be able to move forward quite well. The Prime Minister has been very keen in ensuring that ties with China doesn't just remain, but continuously improve and is further enhanced.
You paint a very optimistic picture of the new Malaysia, as do most of your cabinet colleagues in the new government. But we have also seen ugly political bickering out in the open, questions about the succession. In December, you quite controversially publicly asked one of your cabinet colleagues to resign. What's behind the dysfunction?
I mean, this is a new government, and with a new government comes a new practice where we air out our opinions. We can agree to disagree. On top of that, when the media is freed up, the media embraces the new democratic space, and therefore we see a lot more disagreements or bickerings being out in the open. Things which existed before, but due to media monopoly, due to a strict control by one party, which is UMNO, those things were not at. But in new Malaysia, this happens. I believe this is a symbol of a new democracy. And I believe this is progressive for this new Malaysia, because in the end, we don't have an overarching power. There are sufficient checks and balances within that democracy. And I think that's a signal of a way forward.
Minister, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.